Y'all were coming for us.
Yeah, but Tavis, that's not in my heart. I wasn't coming for anyone like that. I apologize, but that was not me. That's not in my heart. And like I said a few moments ago, I have a solid, demonstrable record of shared power that's real and concrete. That can't be misinterpreted.
Join Tavis Smiley and an all-star panel of political insiders, influencers, and journalists for a look back at the crisis that shook LA City Hall when 4 Latino leaders were caught on tape making racist, demeaning, and derogatory statements about black people and other fellow citizens on Monday, October 9th, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. The tape, 1 year later. Will broadcast live in afternoon drive from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. When all was said and done, was more said than done. 1 year later. Are there fractures in LA's black-brown political partnership? And where do we go from here? Don't miss The Tape, 1 year later. Only on KBLA Talk 1580, Monday, October 9th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about.
Though you may not drive a great big Cadillac, against the white wall, TV antennas in the back. You may not have a car at all, but remember, brothers and sisters, you can still stand tall. Just be thankful.
I'm Tavis Smiley. I'm delighted to have you tuned into our program in this hour. And what an hour it's going to be. I read something not long ago that just totally arrested me. I saw the headline. It pulled me in, and I couldn't stop reading the piece. And the more I got into it, the deeper I got into it, the more fascinating I found it. And whenever that happens to me, I always want to make sure that you are as exposed as I am to the stuff that I get a chance to read in preparation for this show every day and the work that I do. And so this article really, really got my attention. So here's the story. Mammals' time on Earth is now half over. The time of mammals on the face of this Earth is now half over, just like that. Scientists now believe that mammals are expected to go extinct in about 250 million years, and that might seem way off, and it is. But the reasons they've reached that conclusion are beyond fascinating. And I'm delighted to have you join us in this hour with science writer Carl Zimmer, who's going to break this all down for us over the next 60 minutes. Carl Zimmer, good to have you on. How are you today, sir?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
It's my great honor to have you on. Thank you for the work and for the research and for this conversation, which I know others will find as fascinating as I do. I love having these science conversations from time to time. And so let's get started here. So give me the top line. Again, this headline just jumped out at me when I saw it, and I want to talk as we move through this hour about some of your other work. I love the book Life's Edge: The Search for What It Means to Be Alive. I could start our conversation there. Maybe I'll weave into that at some point. But this headline again, it jumped at me. So top line for me, what you laid out in this piece.
Well, there are some scientists who are looking ahead at the future of Earth and projecting out based on what we know about physics and geology and climate. And, you know, the planet is going to get kind of tough for life. And for mammals in particular, it's going to get really hot, actually too hot. They estimate in about 250 million years.
Mm. And by too hot, you mean what?
Well, mammals, you know, whether you're talking about mice or elephants or us, like it's just, we all kind of have the same biology. You know, we're warm-blooded. And then what that really means is that we control our body temperature. and we have to keep it at a certain level to function. That's just how we work. Other animals work differently. And that keeps us warm on a cold day and keeps us cool on a hot day. But if it gets too hot, we just can't deal with it. The first sign that you're getting overheated is heat stroke, but eventually, heat and humidity will kill you. And once you get above a certain threshold, and it seems that's true just for mammals in general. So if you just get too hot and too humid, mammals just can't live. And it looks like about 250 million years from now, we're going to reach a point that we hadn't reached before in the history of mammals, where it's just going to be unsurvivable.
Mm. So what happens to these mammals? Their bodies overheat and they essentially just die?
Yeah, you can't. Mammals will have lots of different ways of trying to stay cool and keep their body at body temperature. We sweat. Dogs pant. There are lots of different ways to stay cool, but they only work so well so far. So if you go out into 130-degree heat with 100% humidity, you're just not going to be able to sweat your way out of that. And eventually your core temperature is just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter until your organs are damaged, and then death will follow. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of people dying in these heat waves recently. That's just us, being mammals, not being able to handle a certain heat and humidity.
Yeah. It's going to be a fascinating hour, as I promised you it would be. When we come forward, I want to continue that line of questioning. There are a few other thoughts I have in my head I want to probe Carl Zimmer about, and I want to talk specifically, given that we just spent an hour talking about all these strikes across the country. We are witnessing, we are in the midst of a summer and now a season of strikes. We're in the fall, and these workers are still striking all across the country in various industries. Have you ever thought about all the folk who work outside? We just talked to Kaiser. They work inside. We just talked about the UAW workers. They work inside. But think of all the American workers, all your fellow citizens, including you perhaps listening right now, wherever you are, who work outside. So if these animals can't handle that, what happens to us as these temperatures continue to rise and we just cannot afford to work outside in this heat? You heard Carl say a moment ago, we're already seeing examples of humans who are dying because they can't work outside. We see these stories from time to time of athletes, young athletes, who just die on football fields during spring training because it's just their bodies overheat. And as these temperatures continue to rise, what does that mean for us? Say nothing of these animals. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. Carl Zimmer is our guest. Can't wait to continue this dialogue when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat in the leg since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Dilly, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range on a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection consistent with the CHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambiance temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
Walk to Save Lives. Join the American Heart Association's Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Sunday, October 22nd at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Team up with friends and family and walk to end heart and stroke. Every step you take and every dollar raised will help save lives and make our community a healthier place for all. Learn more and sign up for free at heartwalkla.org. Sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Providence, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
That's what we were taught, service before self.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
More honesty than you can handle.
More empowerment than you can imagine.
You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley in conversation with brilliant science writer Carl Zimmer. Just really getting started in this conversation about just a brilliant piece, an arresting piece, a provocative piece that Carl Zimmer wrote recently, reporting that scientists now believe that mammals are headed toward extinction. The reasons behind it are fascinating, and we're just really starting to peel back the onion, as it were, on all the reasons why. So, Carl, let me just allow me a point of personal privilege here. When you do this every day, as I've done it for a few decades now, started when I was just 2, but when you've done this for a while, as I have, you're always trying to find unique, interesting ways to address subject matter that may seem otherwise boring. Let's be honest, talking about global warming, talking about climate change, is not the most fascinating stuff I could talk about as a talk show host every day. And yet the conversation is necessary. It's not just necessary. It seems to me it's vital. And beyond being necessary and vital, there's evidence every day that we see that underscore for us that the planet is warming, that climate change and global warming are as real as rain. And so I'm always trying to find ways to have these conversations that will get people's attention in this present moment, trying to find new ways, as it were, to sound the alarm for stuff that, again, a lot of people find boring. When I saw your piece and I read your work, and I read a lot of your work, but when I saw that headline, again, it just jumped out at me. Because if this doesn't grab your attention, I don't know what does. That animals are headed toward extinction because their bodies just can't deal with the heat. The same is true, of course, for we human beings. And we'll talk in a moment about what happens into the future when fellow citizens who work outside just start falling dead because they can't control their body temperature. And there are a lot of folk who work outside in this country every day doing a variety of tasks. So that's a long way of saying, before we get back into the reasons why this is, I want to put our fingers squarely on the culprit here. As I read your piece and read your work, the culprit here really is climate change. It really is global warming. If I'm wrong about that, please take a moment to disabuse me of that notion.
No, you're totally right. The thing is that global warming is it is a tricky thing to talk about because we are experiencing human-made global warming right now, and it is an urgent crisis that we do need to deal with to literally to save lives. At the same time, Earth has a climate where global warming is just part of how it works, and it's been that way since the Earth formed. The fact that we have, liquid water on we have oceans and lakes and so on, as opposed to ice. Well, that's partly because of global warming. In other words, our atmosphere naturally has heat-trapping gases like carbon dioxide and other gases. So our planet, even before we showed up, was warmer than it would have been without an atmosphere. So, global warming is nothing new. But, you know, when you come into a system like that and you say, like, okay, all right, let's turn the knobs way over to the right, like you're going to get into trouble. And so it's important, you know, when people sometimes hear me talk about, you know, climate change that happened, you know, 2 million years ago, they're like, see, no one was driving cars then, so somehow it doesn't matter what's happening now. And I'm saying, no, this shows you that when you do this, when you turn these knobs, naturally or artificially, something's going to happen, and something is happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about how you view these issues that we're discussing now, in the political realm. You mentioned a moment ago that global warming is a part of what it means to live on planet Earth. One could take that, indeed many Republicans, many conservatives do, take that to say, so that's just part of the nature of living on this planet. But we're not going to lose our minds over climate change or intense global warming. We're not buying the argument that it's man-made. It is a part of what it means to live on a place called Earth. And so this has become the worst kind of political football. I don't mean to color the question too much for you. You write this stuff every day. But tell me how you see these issues, these vitally important issues, being, again, kicked around as political footballs.
Right, I have heard that line many times.
I'm sure.
Politicians.
Yeah.
And you're right. So that is definitely a kind of a rhetorical style. But what it leaves out is, like, what kind of life are we talking about? Are we talking about, you know, the life of, say, you know, mouse-like creatures 50 million years ago? Or are we talking about human beings in modern societies? You know, how do we want to live? Do we want to be, you know, living just at the bare edge with population crashes and starvation and famine and so on? Or do we want to actually, like, you know, enjoy life? And, you know, the fact is that, you know, from, you know, the agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago, that was 10,000 years ago. So you can sort of think of, like, if you want to think of modern society as being when people started farming and there was food to support villages, towns, cities, and so on. Like, that's been 10,000 years. And that has just been this tiny little climate window where the climate has not changed very much at all. And we are now pushing the climate far beyond anything that, you know, that has existed since the domestication of agriculture. You know, how are we going to keep feeding ourselves if these crops that we domesticated in this particular climate suddenly face an incredibly harsh climate? There are all these sorts of questions that you have to ask. And if you just say, oh, well, you know, global warming is quote unquote natural, then you don't stop to think about these incredibly urgent questions.
Yeah. When I read stories, and you've, again, written about all of these issues, when I read stories, for example, I see these headlines all the time, sadly, they just kind of scare me. Polar ice caps are melting. And you see these stories. The first thing that comes to my mind is this: you once it melts, you can't refreeze it. I mean, it's like it's melted. It's been that way for, you know, thousands of years, and now it's melted, and we just can't overnight sort of refreeze these polar ice caps. And so that's my way of asking whether or not, with all the talk about what we need to do, whether or not the combination of living on a planet where global warming is part of the process and the fact that this damage may be irreparable means there's not much that ultimately can be done. You buy that argument? I'm just pressing buttons here.
No, I don't buy that argument. I have heard that too, and I think that is just trying to avoid taking responsibility for the situation we're in. I mean, you know, scientists have been. You know, scientists have not. None of this should be coming as a surprise. What we're dealing with today. I mean, you know, to show my age, you know, I started working as a journalist at Discover magazine, like 1990, and right around then, one of the journalists there, Andy Revkin, did the first magazine cover story about global warming. And you know, it just laid it out. It just laid it out like, this is how global warming works. This is what we're doing right now. And if we don't steer off on another course, this is what we can expect. What can we expect? Droughts, wildfires, flooding, like all the things we're dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
So for people at the time are like, oh, you're being hysterical. Oh, that's ridiculous. Oh, the scientists are making this up because they want to make it up. To then turn around and say like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do now because we didn't do anything the past 30 years. That's not responsible.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of things that we can do now. We are not going to be able to, get back to sort of a pre-industrial level of temperature anytime soon. A lot of it is locked in, but, we can make it a lot worse
mm-hmm.
if we just do business as usual. Oil companies are still spending hundreds of millions of dollars, just hunting around for more sources of oil. That oil is going to put carbon into the air. Like we are still on this course, and there are ways to reduce those emissions. There are ways to actually deal responsibly with the global warming that we ourselves have created.
I want to talk about the oil. Now, I'm just making a note to myself. I'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to the oil piece in a moment here. But what got my attention about your piece, again, was the headline. I wanted to share this with the audience and let them read or learn what I learned reading your piece. So let me just circle back now to the article, again, that you wrote. Talking to all these scientists who now believe that mammals are expected to go extinct in about 250 million years because we aren't able to handle the heat. Take me back inside the article and just give me a bit more for those who haven't had a chance to read the actual piece.
Sure. So the important thing to understand to get how they could say something as wild as this. I mean, who can look in the future 250 million years? Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is that there are changes that are happening today that have been happening since the birth of the solar system. So the sun, for example, was much fainter when the solar system formed. And it's been getting steadily brighter as it works through more of its hydrogen. Basically, it's burning and becoming brighter, essentially. And it's about 1% brighter about every 100 million years. We just know that. Mm-hmm. So we know going forward it's going to be brighter. And a brighter sun means a warmer climate, all things being equal. But like we were saying before, greenhouse gases. The planet produces greenhouse gases that come out of volcanoes. They come out of the soil. There are lots of ways that carbon dioxide and other gases get into the air. And if you have more of them in the air, they're going to trap more heat. If you have less of them, they're going to keep it cooler. And on top of that, and this is actually a kind of a surprising thing, what matters also is how the continents are moving around. So you in California, you're dealing with continental drift in a really, serious way because you're always worried about earthquakes.
Yeah.
Like that. That's continental drift. So, about 200 million years ago, all the continents were bunched together in a supercontinent they called Pangaea, and it broke apart and slowly the continents moved to the present positions, and they're going to keep moving. And actually, geologists expect that about 250 million years from now, they're all going to bump back into each other and become another supercontinent. And it turns out that a supercontinent can actually have lots of effects on the climate. So you're going to have a brighter sun, you're going to have a supercontinent, you're going to have these other factors, and if you run the numbers, you're looking at a planet where the land is incredible. The climate on the land is incredibly hot and humid, and it won't mean that all life disappears. Reptiles, they'll be fine, but mammals, they're going to have a hard time of it.
Yeah. So, given that we know, again, I'm circling back to the hour I just had before you came on, we were talking with these Kaiser Permanente workers who were on strike, and one of the persons in that conversation, Georgette Bradford, said to me that they've been talking to Kaiser for years because they knew, the data told them years ago, that they were approaching an era where there'd be a shortage of workers. We now know on this side of the pandemic, we have a shortage of nurses, we have a shortage of doctors, a shortage of folk in the healthcare industry. And so they are out on the picket line right now because Kaiser, according to them, haven't taken these concerns, haven't taken them seriously, and now there's a worker shortage, and people are being overworked and underpaid, and they're stressed, et cetera, et cetera. That's at the epicenter of why they are out on strike. And so we now know, based on what you just laid out, that these continents are going to merge back together again. The sun is getting hotter. It's going to be so hot outside that mammals can't survive. Since we know that's coming, and we already see the evidence of workers everyday people, as Sly Stone might say, who are literally starting to fall out dead because they're working outside even right now, and we haven't seen the worst yet. What ought we be thinking about, Carl Zimmer? What should we be thinking about right now with regard to folk in this country who work outside?
So to think about, the well-being of people in heat, we don't need to look ahead 250 million years. 250 million years from now, that's, we don't know what things will be like for us, maybe we'll be on another planet, or who knows? Mm-hmm. I mean, we just don't know. But it is a powerful lesson on how, fragile life on Earth can be. If you turn the dials, you can actually make a very comfortable place a very uncomfortable place. And so, in our own time scale, on the time scale of years and decades and centuries, we are pumping out carbon dioxide at incredible rates, and so we are creating global warming at an incredible pace. If you look across the history of the planet, you do see times where carbon dioxide in the atmosphere did surge up. Mm-hmm. There certainly have been surges of carbon dioxide in the past. But, the fact is that the very biggest ones of those were, volcanoes that were erupting for 10,000, 20,000 years, just erupting like crazy for millennia, for many, many thousands of years. And we, with our cars and our factories and our air conditioning, we are actually putting in carbon dioxide, about as much carbon dioxide, and at a faster rate.
Let me cut in right there. We'll continue on that note on how we are doing this at a faster rate, as you said, turning the knobs all the way up, and what impact that has on workers outside, and more specifically and more expressly what we ought to be doing right now as we think about what's happening in real time to workers outside. You ain't got to jump 250 million years in the future. So I want to get the rest of Carl Zimmer's response to that question and a great deal more when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking.
That's what we do around here.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. It's now day 21 of the United Auto Workers strike. It comes as 400 more Ford workers in Michigan are being told not to report to work today. Last week, UAW President Shawn Fain said Ford and GM were refusing to make any meaningful progress at the table. Meanwhile, a study from the Anderson Economic Group found the U.S. economy has lost almost $4 billion since the start of the strike. LSU safety Greg Brooks Jr. has been done diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer. Brooks, who is African American, underwent surgery last month to remove a tumor from his brain. He has medulloblastoma. The disease affects between 350 to 500 people in the United States every year and is most commonly found in children. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Seeing that busy drive in Pasadena, slow and go in Pico Rivera, Whittier, and Southgate. It's a wreck trying to clear from a center traffic lane. That's 710 north at Imperial Highway. Center lane blocked with a crash. As you approach that 105, things are busy. Pico Rivera, Whittier have a stalled vehicle on the 605 south at Washington Boulevard, Slauson. That's in the center lane as well and caused it a very busy drive from Beverly Boulevard. Stop and go through Pasadena. Earlier wreck cleared on the 210 west at Sierra Madre, but looks like we're busy here from the 605. Sherman Oaks, the 405 south approaching Burbank Boulevard. Center lane blocked with a crash. Coming away from the Van Nuys area as far back as Nordoff. Things are no-go.
Lowe's knows fall is the perfect time for outdoor projects. Right now, you can keep your yard looking its best and save. Take care of leaves with leaf blowers starting at just $89.98. Lowe's knows home improvement. While supplies last, see store for details.
From out of nowhere, a big rig hit me from the rear. When my doctor prescribed medication, I never imagined it would make me seriously sick.
I was in a rideshare vehicle. We got into this accident. I was hurt really bad.
If you get injured, call OPO Law at 888-OPO-WINS. OPOLaw.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers will play Arizona in the National League Divisional Playoffs. Arizona swept Milwaukee yesterday in the best-of-3 wildcard round. The Dodgers and Arizona kick off their best-of-5 series on Saturday at Dodger Stadium. The Rams saw something at Wednesday's practice they hadn't seen in a while. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp caught some passes from quarterback Matthew Stafford. It was Kupp's first full practice since he went down with a hamstring injury in August. Barring any complications, Kupp could be in the lineup for Sunday's home game against Philadelphia. LeBron James said Anthony Davis is now the face of the Lakers franchise. Lakers fans would rather see Davis stay healthy. Davis has missed 114 games over the past 3 seasons. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
What's up? I'm Danelle Riley, FAMU alumni and creator of the HBCU Culture Shop. I am so proud of my new partnership with Black Beyond Measure and Target. They help me elevate community pride with my HBCU designs and continue to support Black creators and entrepreneurs with Target HBCU challenges, scholarship programs, and campus collaborations. Let's come together this homecoming season and beyond. Shop my brand and discover other Black-owned products at target.com/BlackBeyondMeasure.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look, and unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at the gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
In case you've just tuned in, we are continuing a fascinating conversation with our guest, science writer, brilliant author Carl Zimmer, writes a column called Origins. He's the author of 14 books, including Life's Edge, The Search for What It Means to Be Alive. I want to get into some of that as we move through the rest of this hour. But I specifically invited Carl Zimmer on today to talk about a provocative piece he wrote for the New York Times, where he did a lot of research, talked to a lot of scientists, and discovered what they know, that they believe that mammals are headed toward extinction about 250 million years from now, but the reasons behind why that's happening are fascinating, beyond fascinating. And we've been talking in this hour about the fact it's just a matter of time as the planet continues to heat up, as the sun gets hotter, as the continents start to realign and bounce back into each other again, that it's going to be so hot on planet Earth that we just pass out, we die, and it's something that gets your attention. It got my attention. It's arresting, to say the least. And while these conversations about climate change and global warming may be boring and dry, as I said earlier, I'm always trying to find ways to focus our attention on what really matters in this particular American moment. And a story that jumps out at you that you're going to die sometime soon, if not from one thing or another thing, because it's just too hot. And particularly those who work outside, who can't bear it. Animals start dying and humans start dying because it's just so hot outside that we can no longer handle it. I was in New York last week or so, and my flight home got delayed. In part because it was raining so hard in New York, they shut the airports down. I couldn't get out. Just the city was just flooded. I mean, cars in the streets, and New York just isn't designed for that. And so the airports are shut down. We had to change flights to get back home, but it's just a hot mess, a rainy mess, as it were, in New York City. So these things are real, and we need to spend some time, it seems to me, every now and again, taking these issues seriously. So I'd ask you moments ago, Carl, you were working toward your detailed answer about what we do now that the data, these scientists make it clear what's coming. To your point, we ain't got to jump 250 million years in the future to see that workers in this country right now, athletes outside at practice right now, are dying because they're overheating. Older persons who live in certain geographies, live in certain spaces, are dying right now because bodies are overheating, and that's going to become the new normal down the road. So my question was, what ought we do about that? And you were about to say,
well, it's all a question of scale, of time scale. So, like, right away, there need to be cooling centers. For example, in communities where people, may not be able to afford to run their air conditioning very much, like if you're just trying to save money to pay the rent and you can't pay for air conditioning, which is a problem a lot of people in hot places have, you can put yourself at risk of heat stroke. And so, there need to be like basic things like cooling centers, for example. There needs to be, construction needs to take into account that we're living in this hotter climate. And I think, people need to just acknowledge that, the climate that they are, sending their kids to practice, sports in is not really the climate that they grew up with. Mm-hmm. Everything is shifted. And so, don't just sort of, don't just, take this climate lightly, because it can be a matter of life and death. On a longer, looking forward, I mean, really in the next few decades, this problem is going to, can potentially get much more serious. Like we're talking about a few days where, it's really hot in Phoenix, say, a few days out of the year, a few weeks. But what happens when some parts of the planet become uninhabitable for people? That is not out of the realm of possibility. I'm not saying that all of the planet's going to be uninhabitable for people, but there are countries right now where many, many millions of people live where they're going to, it's a question about whether they will be able to just survive there. So we have to be taking really urgent steps to deal with this climate crisis, to deal with our own carbon emissions.
Yeah, we're always having these conversations about, in places where there are war or famine or other issues, persons having to be on the move to other countries. And that always creates a conversation about whether or not they're going to let certain people in or not let certain people in. But there's always this sort of migrant movement. What I hear you saying is that in the years to come, it won't be about migrant movement. It'll be people moving away from spaces where they can't survive. To your point, we're talking about, a few days in Phoenix, or this year, a few weeks in Phoenix, where the temperature didn't seem to break 120. But imagine if that happens perennially, if every day for weeks and months on end, the temperature doesn't break in Phoenix. You're going to leave Phoenix at some point. At some point, you're going to leave there. And then Phoenix ends up being a wasteland, and you've got tumbleweed rolling down the street because nobody wants to live in Phoenix anymore or can survive in Phoenix anymore. And that, I take your point, and that's not strange or bizarre thinking to see that happening somewhere down the road. Let me pivot now to this issue that you raised earlier about oil. Every presidential election season, and God help us, we are in the midst of one right now, we get all these debates about America's dependence on oil. We've got to break America's dependence on oil. We hear that every 4 years from somebody on the campaign trail. You raised this issue earlier, and I'm wondering if you can unpack a bit more why that it has to be more than just a slogan. I say all the time that slogans aren't solutions, but we hear that slogan all the time. America must end its dependence on oil. Unpack that for me, Carl Zimmer.
Well, the world needs to. Let me put it that way. Because, it's pretty simple. We are looking, if we just keep on putting more and more carbon dioxide into the air at the rate we're doing, actually our carbon emissions are increasing worldwide. And if we just keep on that path, within a few decades, we're going to be, crossing some thresholds that, experts say, we really don't want to go there. Mm-hmm. We're going to be looking at all sorts of planet-wide civilization-threatening problems, whether it's drought or sea level rise and so on. And so the thing is that when you say okay, how can we not get to that scenario? Well, at some point we have to stop putting carbon dioxide in the air. We just have to get to zero. We just have to. Yeah. And so, if we had started, down this track in the 80s or 90s, just developing technologies and, thinking about how the infrastructure was going to change, we would have had more time and more options. Yeah. But we've procrastinated. As a species, we have procrastinated. We don't have that. We have much less time now. And so, so going off and drilling for more oil is exactly the wrong thing to do in this situation, because there's no, oil is carbon, and you burn it and you put some carbon dioxide in the air. It's that simple.
Nope, I take your point. It ain't that complicated, even though the politics of it always seem to get in the way. When we come forward, Carl has not just written this provocative piece in the New York Times about the fact that mammals are headed toward extinction. He's the author of a column called Origins and the author of 14 texts, including Life's Edge, the search for what it means to be alive. I want to get into some of that in our remaining moments with Carl Zimmer on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom. What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Klein tools are new at Lowe's, pros. Lowe's knows you want top brands and quality products, and Klein Tools delivers. Right now, get the Klein 3-piece ModBox mobile workstation for $319.94 and the Klein 5-piece cushion grip screwdriver set for just $34.97, both exclusively at Lowe's. Shop the largest selection of Klein tools, the highest quality tool brand at Lowe's. Because Lowe's knows tools, Lowe's knows pros.
To some, this might sound like a typical family dog. But at Dog Chow, we know that for a veteran suffering from PTSD, this could be the sound of life-saving therapy.
Thanks, Betty.
That's why we've made it our mission to connect every military hero in need with a canine hero of their own. To learn about the simple ways you can help Dog Chow in our mission, visit dogchow.com/veterans.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Hey, did you know Vistaprint prints everything a small business needs? Like if a barbershop needs signage, we print outdoor signs, posters, and banners. Or if a ballet school needs merch,
1, 2,
we print tote bags, t-shirts, hoodies, hats. Or if a coffee shop needs a total refresh,
latte for Mike?
Vistaprint designs logos and prints it on menus, mugs, paper bags, anything. Because with Vistaprint, the printabilities are endless. Print it all with 25% off for new customers with code NEW25 at Vistaprint.com.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Carl Zimmer. Carl, I want to just I'm looking at the clock here. I want to spend a little time talking about one of these 14 texts you've written, Life's Edge, the search for what it means to be alive. Just give me some of what that's about.
Well, when I'm not writing about how life might come to an end on Earth, I am just fascinated by life in general. Just life. It's endlessly fascinating to me in all its forms that we see around us. And so I get to talk to lots of scientists, who study, whales and redwoods and bacteria and just all the incredible diversity of life on Earth. And every now and then I'll just, when I'm feeling a little mischievous, I'll say, so what is life anyway? And they kind of squirm and kind of try not to answer the question because they can't. Because life, scientists do not agree on a definition of life. There are hundreds of definitions that have been put forward, and they're not getting any close to really coming to any sort of agreement. And so, it's a fascinating struggle that scientists have been going through for centuries to try to understand life as a phenomenon. And they're getting there. I think there will be, life will be a bit less mysterious, maybe, but maybe not in our lifetime. So in the book, I write about all sorts of, strange forms of life, from bats to fly moles and all sorts of things, but also, talking to philosophers about, what is it, what do we mean when we even use that word life, and what are we trying to do by defining it? And this matters to, NASA. NASA wants to go find life, but what are they looking for? Should they just look for DNA? Well, is life defined by DNA, or could there be some entirely different kind of molecule that allowed aliens to have heredity? We don't know. But scientists are actually trying to build some of those alternate life forms in the lab to find out right now.
Yep. I'm curious. I'll ask this of Carl when we come forward in our remaining moments with him. I'm curious as to why it is so necessary, so important to have a definition of life, certainly as it relates to human beings. Life, in many respects, is what each of us determine it to be. I don't mean to be too philosophical here, but why is it so important for scientists to put a definition on life? We'll close with that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCEL scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
So why is it so important to put a definition on that term, that word life, Carl Zimmer?
Well, I think it's one of the biggest mysteries of science. It's a fascinating question in and of itself. But on a very personal level, like think about your own life. Mm-hmm. Think about those questions. When did it begin? When does it end? We define life and death legally, having to do with our brains, basically. Brain death is death for us. Why do we say that? And so there are all sorts of ways in which this is a profound question and a very cool question too. And it's kind of remarkable that, we're at a time where scientists haven't yet worked that out. And so, there was a time when scientists didn't know what water was, They just would talk about, water is this stuff that's clear and wet, that's not good enough. Now we know it's hydrogen and oxygen. And there was a before and after, and we're in the before times when it comes to life.
Yeah. How concerned are you on a scale of 1 to 10 about our future as human beings?
I'm very concerned. I mean, I think everybody should be, take our future seriously. And if you look at what's happening with, we're already, 2023, this past month was, climate-wise, it's literally off the charts. Mm-hmm. We're in an emergency. but we're human beings. We actually are pretty smart. We can do stuff, and this is not beyond our ability. This is not like a mystery of like what is life. We can actually reduce our carbon emissions. We know enough. We know that we are causing global warming. That's pretty awesome. And we can figure out how to stop it. And we really need to get serious about it.
Yep. And finally, for those who want to follow your work beyond this conversation, tell me about your Origins column.
Yeah, it's in the New York Times, and I look at, basically kind of how everything around us, life as we know it has gotten to be the way it is, whether it's ourselves or birds or what have you. You can find that at the New York Times website. And my books, like you mentioned, Life's Edge, they're on my own website, carlzimmer.com.
carlzimmer.com. And finally, given the work that you do, talking to these scientists about, the search for what it means to be alive and the fact that mammals are headed toward extinction, all the stuff that you encounter every day talking to these really, really smart people. When you hear this stuff and you have to process it and write about it, I'm just curious as to how one Carl Zimmer sustains his hope.
I guess, we've made it this far, history is full of challenges and suffering, but also, rising to those challenges. And I just have to stay hopeful. I think we all do. I don't think hopelessness is an option.
Yeah. Nope, that's a powerful note on which to end. You lose hope, you've lost everything. So I thank you for that. Carl Zimmer, again, provocative piece called Mammals' Time on Earth is Half Over. Scientists predict, you can find that in the New York Times, Mammals' Time on Earth is Half Over. Scientists predict. That's the Times piece that got me wanting to talk to Carl Zimmer. His column in the Times is called Origins. Writes about all kind of fascinating stuff. You can find Origins, again, at the New York Times and at carlzimmer.com. All of his books, 14 and counting, including the one we discussed a bit in this latter part of the conversation, Life's Edge, the search for what it means to be alive. Carl Zimmer, good to have you on this program. Thanks for your insights. Thanks for your work. It's beyond interesting and fascinating, and I enjoyed the opportunity to unpack some of it with you. Thank you, and all the best to you, sir.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. Good to have you on. When we come forward, the last hour today of Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Boston University, and she'll start at BU next July. Gilliam will become the first woman and first black person to be the president.